Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Sumukascha ekadantascha kapilo gajakarnyakah lambodharascha vikato vignarajo vinayakah dhoomaketur ganadhyakshah phalachandro gajananah vakratundah surpakarno herambah skandapurvajah Suklam Baradharam Vishnum Safivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopasantaye Yasya Dviradavaktradhyaha Parishadhyaha Parasatam Vighum Vignanti Satatam Vishvaksenam Kamastraye Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheswarahan Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sachidananda Rupaya Krishnaya Aklishtakarine Namo Vedanta Vedhyaya Gurave Buddhisakshine Krishna Dvaipaya Namdyasam Sarva Bhuta Hite Ratam Vedabjabhaskaram Vande Samadhi Nilayam Munim Janmadhyasya Yataha Anvayat Itaratascha Artheshu Abhignaha Sarat Tene Brahmahuda Yaha Adikavaye Mukhyanti Yat Surayah Tejo Vali Mrugam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trusargo Mrisham Dhamma Sena Sada Nirastatuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Dharmahat Prochidha Kaitavotra Paramo Nirmat Saranam Satam Vedhyam Vaktavam Atra Vastu Sivadam Kapatrayo Molanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krute Kimva Parehi Swaraha Sadhyo Hridi Avarudhyatehe Atra Krutivihi Susrushvihi Takshanat Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Palam Sukamukat Amrita Dravasam Yutam Tibata Bhagavatam Ratamalayam Muhuraho Rasikaha Bhuvi Bhavukaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet. Now, with Swami's grace, the thought occurred, His will only, and you all agreed, and I shared it with you, you all agreed. We will undertake a review of the first three skandams, skandam 1, skandam 2, and skandam 3. Now, narrating Bhagavatam is much easier because we are going to see Bhagavatam is nothing but sharing the experiences between Bhagavan and Bhakta. That's going all the time. But to give a summary of skandam 1, 2, and 3 of this treatise, the nectarine treatise that is written by none other than Bhagavan Vyasa himself, is not an easy task. It's, in my opinion, probably an impossible task. So whatever happens, is that obviously, I have to be selective. And when I review the various local guides and what Bhagavan Vyasa is saying, and by the process of selection, I will be making quite a number of errors of omission, errors of commission, and all that I submit as a lotus feet of Bhagavan, my dearest Guru, because I know he will guide and he will speak through me. And with that brief introduction, I want to share with you what Bhagavatam really is. And then we will go to the book, as we call it, the Pustakam, the Bhagavatam, the 18,000 slokangal that have been given to us by Bhagavan Vyasa. So let us start. The name Bhagavata can be applied to every account of the experiences of those who have contacted Bhagavan and Bhakta. Bhagavan assumes many forms and enacts many activities. The name Bhagavata is given to the description of the experiences of those who have realized him in those forms and of those who have been blessed by his grace and chosen as his instruments. Now the great work known by the name the Bhagavata is honored by all masters of the Vedas. It is a panacea which cures physical, mental and spiritual illnesses. The Bhagavata is saturated with sweetness of nectar. It shines with the splendor of Bhagavan. The principle of avataram, or the descent of Bhagavan on earth, the incarnation of the formless with form, for the uplift of beings. This is the basic fact that makes the Bhagavata authentic. By Bhagavata, we also mean those with attachment to Bhagavan, those who seek the companionship of Bhagavan. For such people, the book, the Bhagavata, is most precious. It is the breath of their life. Now, to be in the midst of such Bhagavata is to foster one's own bhakti. Unless you have a taste for Bhagavan, Godward bound thoughts, you will not derive joy from reading Bhagavata. To create the taste, the Bhagavata relates stories relating to the incarnations, to the earnest inquirer. Then one develops the yearning to experience the thrill of Bhagavan through all levels of consciousness. Now he who has this intense yearning can be a true Bhagavata. Now people believe that incarnations of Bhagavan happen only for two reasons: the punishment of the wicked or the protection of the righteous. But these represent only one aspect of the task, the granting of peace and joy, of a sense of fulfillment to seekers who have striven very long. This too is a task. The avatar, or the form incarnate, is only a concretization of the yearning of the seekers. It is a solidified sweetness of the devotion of godly aspirants. The formless assumes the form for the sake of these aspirants and seekers. This is the prime cause. The cow secretes milk for the sustenance of the cows. That is the chief beneficiary. But as we see, others too benefit from that milk. So too, though the bhaktas are the prime cause and the joy and sustenance the prime purpose, other incidental benefits also accrue, such as the fostering of dharma, the suppression of evil, and the overwhelming of the wicked. Now, there is no compulsive rule that incarnation should occur only on earth and in human form. Any place, any form can be chosen by the fully free, the Swarat. Whichever place, whichever form promotes the purpose of fulfilling the yearning of the devotee, that place and that form are chosen by the will of Bhagavan. Bhagavan is above and beyond the limits of time and space. He is beyond all the characteristics and qualities. No list of such can describe him fully. For him, all beings are equal. The difference between man, beast, bird, worm, insect, and even a god is but a difference in the vessel, the upadhi. It is like the electric current that flows through various appliances and expresses itself in many different activities. There is no distinction in the current. It is the same. To speak of it as different is to reveal one's ignorance. So too, the one single Bhagavan activates every vessel or upadhi and gives rise to manifold consequences. The wise see only the one uniform current. The ignorant feel that they are all distinct. Bhagavan appreciates the consciousness of unity as the basic motive of all acts. He does not appreciate the activity itself being one, without variety. It is suited to the various needs. The fruits of karma or activity appeal only to those who identify themselves with the body and not for the others who know that they are the indestructible Atma. Again, you must know that there is no end to the incarnations that God indulges in. He has come down on countless occasions. Sometimes he comes with a part of his glory, sometimes with a fuller equipment of splendor, sometimes for a particular task, sometimes to transform an entire era of time, an entire continent of space. It is a story of the last of these that Bhagavan comes to transform an entire era of time, an entire continent of space that the Bhagavata elaborates. The drama enacted by the Avataram and the Bhaktas drawn towards him is a subject matter of the Bhagavata. Listening to it promotes the realization of God. Many sages have testified to its efficacy and extolled the Bhagavata, which they help preserve for posterity. Generally speaking, man gets drawn to sense objects because he is a victim of instincts. Instincts easily seek sense objects. They come along with the body and are not derived by any training. The infant seeks milk from the mother's breast. The newborn calf nestles at the udder. No training is needed for this. But for the infant to walk and talk, some training is necessary. The reason is that they are not automatic. They are socially prompted, by example, by an imitation of others. Training is essential even for the proper pursuit of sense pleasure. For it is a wild, untrained search for such pleasure that promotes anger, hatred, envy, malice, and conceit. To train them along salutary lines and to hold them under control, certain good disciplines like japa, dhyana, upavasam, sandhyavandanam, etc. are essential. But however much their value may be praised and their practice recommended by people who do not develop a taste, people do not develop a taste for them. However much you praise, that japam is important, dhyana is important, upavasam is important, sandhyavandanam is important. People don't seem to develop a taste. This is because the desire for sensory pleasure has struck deep roots in the human heart. When one is asked to do spiritually salutary acts, one has no inner prompting at all. Still, one should not give up in despair. Until the taste sprouts, the disciplines have to be strictly followed. This taste is a result of training. No one has it from the very beginning. Constant practice will create the zest and enthusiasm. The infant does not know the taste of milk. By taking it daily, it develops an attachment for it, which is so deep that when milk is to be given up and rice substituted, it starts to protest. But the mother does not despair. She persuades the child to take small quantities of cooked rice daily, and by this process, It starts liking rice and it gives up milk. Milk was once its natural food. By practice, rice became its natural food. So natural that if no rice is available for a single day, it becomes miserable. So too, those sense pleasures are natural at first. By means of practice of training and listening to the commendation of the wise, slowly the greater and more lasting pleasure derivable from the glories of Bhagavan and their recapitulation is grasped. Thereafter, one cannot exist without that atmosphere even for a minute. One feels that there is nothing as sweet as the experience of listening to the splendor of Bhagavan. The company of the worldly who chatter about the senses and the sense objects will no longer attract. The company which exults in praising Bhagavan will draw and will hold. This is a real hallmark of the good. Sadhakas and votaries of the Bhagavan are to be judged by these only, not by external apparel or appearances. If one mixes with men who revel in the sensory talks and activities, then he puts himself out of court. Spend your time in the company of the godly, engaged in godly affairs. Avoid getting mixed with the company of the ungodly. Do not see their activities or listen to their accounts. Only those who avoid them can be called Bhagavatas or God's own. Reading and enjoying the stories of the glory of Krishna in some sacred spot or some temple or prayer hall, shrine or hermitage of a saint or sage, or in the company of the virtuous and the good, this is a source of great inspiration and joy. It makes people forget everything else. Else, one can approach pious men and serving them, listen to their exposition of the glories of God. Taste for such wholesome literature is a result of accumulated merit and endeavor. It is that merit that rewards one with such company. Listening will be enough in the beginning. Later, the stories will arouse interest in the nature and characteristics of Bhagavan, and the aspirant will seek and find for himself the path to realization. Listening to expositions by the wise is much better than reading oneself. Or one can be looking into the text while listening. It is preferable to listen in company rather than alone. Of course, it is excellent to listen with a number of earnest aspirants. The person who expounds has had the thrill of genuine experience, then it is the most supreme luck, because it yields the best results. Because his face will blossom into joy, his eyes will shed tears of joy at the very contemplation of the glory of Bhagavan. Those who listen to him will catch that inspiration. They will experience the joy themselves. In the midst of a group that weeps, tears will spring out of the eyes of those who have come in. When an infant smiles, those around will also smile in unison. So too, the words of those who are saturated with bhakti, with devotion to God, will saturate the hearts of those who listen. It is impossible to measure the profit that one can derive while in the company of the great. Through that process of listening, a dirt-laden heart will be transformed into a clean, illumined heart, shining with genuine light. To the foul odors of sense pursuits, keenness to listen to the glories of Bhagavan is a valuable disinfectant, besides being in itself full of fragrance itself. The listening will cleanse the heart through the prompting it gives for good work. Such a cleansed heart is the most appropriate altar. In that fragrant bower, Bhagavan will establish himself. At that very moment, another incident too will happen. The group of 6 vices that had infested the place will quit without even leaving their address behind. When these vices quit, the wicked retinue of evil tendencies and vulgar attitudes which live on them will break camp and disappear. Then man will shine in his native splendor of Sathya and Prema. He will endeavor without hindrance to realize himself, and finally he will succeed in merging with the universal, the eternal. He will liberate himself from the tangle of ignorance or Maya. His mind will fade away. The long hidden secret will be revealed to him. He will discover this Madhava Tattva. Man's nature is prema, love. He cannot survive a moment when deprived of love. It is the very breath of his life. With the 6 vices to which he was attached for so long disappear, love is the only occupant of the heart. But love has to find an object, a loved one. It cannot be alone. So it is directed to the dark blue divine child, the charming cowherd boy Shyamasundara, whose purity personified, whose embodiment of service, sacrifice, and selflessness, and who has taken residence in the cleansed altar. There is no scope now for any other attachment to grow. So, step by step, the love for Madhava becomes deeper, purer, more self-denying until at last there is no other need for thought, and the individual is merged in the universal. When Vasudeva enters the heart of man, Vasudeva has no longer a place therein. In other words, when the Deva of Vasu or wealth is seated in the heart, the divine Vasudeva or Krishna cannot dwell therein. Any attempt to accommodate both wealth and Dhanam and Bhagavan in the heart is bound to fail. Darkness and light cannot exist at the same time and in the same place. They cannot continue together. Dhanam and Daivam cannot be joint ideals. When Dhanam or riches are sought, Daivam or God cannot also be achieved. If both are sought by man, what he will achieve will be neither Dhanam nor Daivam, but Dayam, the devil. It is creditable if man behaves as man. It is laudable if he behaves as the Madhava he really is. But to behave as a demon or as an animal is despicable indeed. For man was long born a mineral and died a mineral. Then he promoted himself as a tree. He was long born a tree and died as a tree. But in the process, he got promoted as an animal. But he has now risen into the status of man. This rise from one scale to another has been acknowledged by science and spiritual experience. Now, alas, he is born as man and dies as man. It's a greater shame if he slides into the beast or a beastly augur. Praise is due only if he rises to the divine status. That is a real fulfillment of his destiny. Therefore, avoid contact with vices. Develop attachment to virtues. Transmute the heart into an altar for the Lord. Destroy all the shoots and sprouts of desire. Then your Manasa Sarovaram, the lake of your inner consciousness, will be sublimated into a Kshira Sagara, the pure ocean of milk, where the Lord reclines on the serpent couch. Your real self will, like the celestial Hamsa, revel in the placid waters of that lake. Thus transformed, it will discover endless delight. Who can mark the beginning of the continuous waves of the ocean? It is an impossible task. If anyone decides to do so, the wave with which he starts the calculation will be considered as the beginning. The wave with which he stops his calculation will be for him the last, the end. There is a beginning and an end for his count. There is no beginning or end for the process. No one can visualize either in the boundless, illimitable expanse. God's glory is a shoreless ocean. When one stops describing it, it begins for him. When he finishes his description, it is the end so far as he is concerned. But Bhagavan's glory is beyond space and time. Only little minds, limited minds will argue that God's glory has a beginning and an end. The stage on which he plays his Leela has no boundaries. The story of his Leela is all nectar. It has no other component, no other taste, no other content. Everyone can drink his fill from any part of that ocean of nectar. The same sweetness exists everywhere, in every particle. There is nothing inferior to mar the sweetness. The love of God and the love for God are both eternally sweet and pure. Whatever the method of your accepting or attaining them, such love is holy and inspiring. Sugar is sweet when eaten during the day or during the night. For it is night or day for the person who eats, not for the sugar. Sugar behaves uniformly always. Now, a word about Puranas. Purana has got 10 characteristics and a very brief origin of why the Purana is there, and then we'll continue in our next session, because by necessity, following our discipline, I will have to break this down into 30 minutes. And the Puranas are designed to confer on the eager and the earnest listener the support and sustenance necessary for the sadhaka proceeding to liberation. The Vedas indicate by means of a statement here or an axiom there. They may not be easy to understand, or they may implied suggestion they may give in another context, or sometimes even a direct description of an actual experience. Let us do all this. But the Puranas, all these are elaborated for better understanding, better digestions, and better imbibing by the Puranas. And this is said by Sukha to Parikshit. And the Purana has got 10 characteristics, and that we will take up with Bhagavan's grace tomorrow, and what the 10 characteristics of Purana are, and where the Bhagavatam, these characteristics show up, the qualities of the Purana shows up, and what exactly is a Purana. All those things we will take up tomorrow with Bhagavan's grace, before we move into the genesis of the Bhagavata, the great work that is being gifted to us, blessed to us as a blessing by Sage Vyasa. We will take it up and then move from there. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Santet Santet Santihi. Harihi Om.